I'm a partner at SobelCo. I would like to welcome you to Sobel Insights. Sobel Insights is a weekly series to provide some brief information on various topics. Our goal is to keep these sessions to 15 minutes. At this time, we don't provide CPE. If we ever get into the world of nano credits, we'll be happy to offer CP credits. As I said, we'd like to offer some different topics and give us a little insight into various areas. Today's topic is exit planning. And I met this person, our presenter, at a recent presentation, and it was just he's a great speaker, a lot of information. We asked him to come back and speak a little bit more on it. His name is Brett Deering. He's a partner at Cerity Partners, and he focuses on assisting clients with mergers, acquisitions, recapitalizations, private equity purchases, strategic acquisitions, etc. Brett is a certified exit planning advisor, which I learned that credential recently. And if you could just tell the audience, what is a CEPA?
Yeah, that's an interesting, I get that question a lot. I mean, I'll answer it two ways. I'll answer it qualitatively, and then I'll give you a quantitative answer. I think the qualitative answer to start off with is it's really the foundation to help business owners realize their goals around transitioning their business. And, when you think about that, there's really kind of the framework of the certified exit planning advisor strategy is focusing on kind of three real pillars of preparedness planning. And that is business planning, helping the business prepare for exit, financial planning, which is really helping the business owner get prepared for the transition and help maximize the net proceeds of the transaction. And then personally, which is really what drew me to the CEPA, which was, really helping that business owner pre-experience and really move past what life's going to look like after the transaction, which I think a lot of times everybody is so enamored and so focused on the actual transaction that, I have this visual in my mind of, the deal table has, cake and all these wonderful things, and there might be a bottle of champagne, and it's, and it's messy and it's empty, and there's no one in this, kind of in this conference room, and except for the business owner, and he has that look on his face like, well, what do I do next? Mm-hmm. And so, that was something that I always thought was important when dealing with business owners and helping them get ready for transition. The qualitative or the quantitative answer is really, it's a nationally recognized accreditation offered by the Exit Planning Institute. I received mine back in 2013, 2014. And really, for me, it was just something that blended well with my background. I was an outsourced COO, and I worked for privately held and family-owned businesses and really helped them around growth strategies and managing the day-to-day operations. And one day, business owners started to say, hey, Brett, can you help me figure out how to sell this now that we've gotten where we want it? And I said, okay, well, the person that I am, I said, well, let me go find out how to do that. And so, I bumped into, this accreditation, and I started to look at it, and I said, this is a good framework for me to be able to do that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And when you talk about the whole process of a deal, and in the past, you had kind of mentioned some people. I imagine you're part of the team. Who else is on the team when business is considering an exit strategy?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say the accountant first, right?
Thank you.
But I think there are really, a few key people. What I would say is different today than maybe even 2 or 3 years ago is that the Certified Exit Planning Advisor, this CEPA, should be at the table for business owners. I mean, really, they're the planning orchestrator, and they really tie all of these, these advisors together. A trust and estate attorney, because you're going to have to do some tax planning around, the transition itself. And so you want to make sure that you have a really good trust and estate attorney there to be able to help that process through. As I said, the accountant, in most cases, during the due diligence process, there's going to have to be some type of financial due diligence package prepared for the buyer. And often they'll need reviewed, financials, hopefully at minimum, but at best, audited financials. And so they're going to have your accountant there at the table helping with that process as well. Two that I don't know necessarily people think about is an M&A attorney. A lot of times business owners feel like they can actually negotiate this transaction themselves. And, I think this is where a lot of the breakdown happens in sales, of businesses and the negotiation process. And, I think if you don't have an M&A attorney that really understands the legality of the negotiation and all of the documentation, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And quite candidly, I think it's one of the reasons why so many businesses fail to sell on an annual basis.
Wow.
And then finally, the investment banker. This is an area that I think a lot of times business owners, well, I don't want to pay an investment banker. And the way that I always explain that is, imagine that your business is, you have an opportunity to go from a 4 multiple to a 6 multiple. And let's just say the difference between those 2 multiples in EBITDA are $1 million or $2 million. And you're going to pay your investment banker, let's just say $250,000 to actually help negotiate this transaction. Would you invest $225,000 to be able to make, 1 to 2 million? And the answer to that question every time is yes. And that's the way you need to look at it from the investment banker. Is it's an ROI transaction with an investment banker. You're going to get a higher ROI. Excuse me. I didn't have my first cup of coffee.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, exactly. When utilizing an investment banker. Last thing I'll say is this: 80% of businesses up for sale every year do not sell.
Wow.
I feel in my career, the reason why is because business owners feel they can negotiate the transaction themselves. Secondly, really don't have a real understanding of the true value of their business. And they don't have somebody that's negotiating and keeping them at the table with the buyer. So those are in my mind, the 5 key people that need to be at the table with the business owner.
You've said multiple times in that dialogue, people insist on trying to do it themselves. And I have a lot of clients that will, not selling, but just in general, will call at last minute. And the cleanup process is a lot worse than if we just talked about it beforehand. And if you gave a heads up at least. And I don't know why people, and I've heard people in a transaction say, well, I'm going to try and handle this myself. And I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the standard. I mean, I have 2 thoughts about that. It's like me trying to play basketball against Michael Jordan and win, right? A lot of times, these are individuals and institutions that are on average doing 3 to 10 transactions a year, have 20 years, 25 years of experience. They know this like the back of their hand. I came from, Goldman, and I was sitting across the table from business owners, representing the opposition. And I understood all the tricks of the trade. That was one of the reasons why I left, because I didn't like it. But what I would say is, if you're a business owner and you think that you can sit down and have a negotiation where you're going to maximize the value of your transaction with individuals that have been doing that on average for 25 to 30 years, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying you're not a great business owner, because you are. I'm just saying that is not a place that you really want to go in by yourself.
Okay. So moving to a different area, I've seen a lot of it in your bio. I've seen it talking with clients, PE firms, private equity firms coming in and buying. If a company is considering a company that's been in the family for X amount of years, usually a culture shock when the PE firm comes in. What should a seller consider if they are looking into a PE firm buying their organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, they need to clearly understand what their exit is, right? A lot of times business owners say they want to sell and they want to leave the business. If you want to do that, private equity is not going to be optimal for you. Private equity is, and you have to understand the private equity model. Private equity model is usually a financial buyer will come in. They're either have a larger platform company that they're looking to roll your company up to or into, or they're looking at you as potentially that platform company where they can go and find smaller add-ons. And so in most cases, the business model is they'll buy either majority or minority share of your business. They will ask you to stay on for a minimum of 5 years. And I can give you a reason why that 5 year is the number. In most cases, you'll be standing in, kind of in these business meetings, management meetings with the private equity, the financial investor. And you have to be okay with the fact that maybe where you felt you wanted your business to go, maybe they have a different vision for that. And so, you have to remember that they are now also equally, if not a majority owner of that business, and they actually have the last say about what and how you run the business. So if you're not familiar with that, then you need to understand that those are some of the things that you want to be familiar with. The other component of it, ultimately is, a lot of times business owners are used to, dividending, proceeds out at the end of the year. With private equity, that pretty much dries up and stops. Or if they're doing some type of participation, when you dividend yourself out profits, you have to also dividend profits out to them. So financially, it's different. And you want to make sure that you clearly understand what it's, the parameters of having an equity partner. Finally, it is a marriage. If you're thinking that you're just going to jump into a private equity relationship for 5 years and everything is going to be great, I'm just going to tell you that's just not the way it is. You do your due diligence, talk to other businesses that are owned or work or partner with that private equity group. Talk to the business owners and make sure that they're a good partner for you. Because once you sign that paperwork and that ink dries, it becomes a much more difficult, strategy and or situation to be able to undo that.
So it's much different than when somebody wants to do an upstream merger to a larger competitor, per se.
Yeah, I think, well, absolutely. Because, in most cases with a strategic, the one thing that's beautiful about strategics is that they're usually the highest part of the value kind of stream for a transaction. Private equity usually isn't going to offer you the highest price because they can't, right? Their financial model is being able to create value and create revenue. And so they have to be able to buy that business at some type of, not necessarily discount, but at a lower premium than a strategic. A strategic is buying your business because it's not just looking at your business, it's looking at all of the other potential connectivity to what they're doing in their business, more market share, being able to expand their client base, being able to expand and diversify their product base. So it's an accretive transaction for them. It's a much different transaction and they're willing to pay more for your business. The other thing too is it's a different strategy when it comes to you exiting the business. In some cases, it could be 100% cash or some type of cash upfront. Very rarely does that happen. Usually it's some type of high percentage of cash with some type of earn out on the back end. And so when you have that, those are kind of the two opportunities. But what I would say is still be prepared to, at least have a couple of years in the business post-transaction.
That's great. So one last question. You had mentioned owners trying to do it on their own, by themselves. If there's one landmine that you commonly see people stepping on, what would it be?
I think the biggest one for me is just not being prepared. It's unfortunate because I don't think a lot of business owners really feel or understand what that will do to them and how it impacts their transaction. Earlier I said there's that multiple of 4 to 6, and again that's just a range. It's not reality today, and they're much higher. But what I always tell people is, 4 is your bottoms, is your floor, 6 is your ceiling, and if you're really prepared and have everything kind of humming on all 4 cylinders, you can push past 6 even into 7. The only control that you have as a business owner is which multiple you can focus on and really drive for that transaction. If you're not prepared and your financials are a mess and they feel like they have to go in and hire individuals to help clean that up, well, you're going to be closer to the 4 and maybe even the 3. If you have great documentation, if you have a good management team, if you have good processes and procedures, great financials, and it's just a real easy transition for that buyer, then they're willing to pay 6. So, I would say the biggest issue is, really not being prepared. And I'll just say this final thing, which is, business owners, 90% of the time, you're not in control of the sale of your business. You're not in control of that, right? Most cases today, somebody knocks on your door and says, "Hey, I'm interested in your business, Brad, and I want to learn more. I'm going to send over an NDA." At that point, it's too late. that spread between 4 and 6, it's too late. If your business isn't prepared, then you're going to get the lower multiple. And then I think the last is not knowing the numbers. A lot of times people will say, well, my EBITDA is, 3 million, or it's 2 million. Well, do you know what the add backs are? So you need to go through and understand the financials and understand the numbers before you sit down at a table with somebody who's going to do a tremendous amount of forecasting and modeling about your business. And they're going to know your business almost inside and out as better as you do from a financials perspective. So know the numbers.
Right. And so that's where the certified exit planning emphasize advisor comes in. And people should look you up at Cerity Partners, because it's important that you start the planning process early. And if you plan on selling tomorrow, today is not the planning time. So we're talking much further out. So Brett, I want to thank you. We're hitting right around the 15-minute mark. I want to thank you for coming on today and presenting. You provide such great information. I hope that the business owners think about this and listen to it and reach out to you and start the planning process now. So
my pleasure, Brad. My pleasure. I appreciate it. Great to see you as usual, and look forward to the next opportunity to work together.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining in with us. Thank you for viewing, and look for our other presentations on our website.